What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Glad to have you. Be sure to smash the like button, comment on these videos, share these videos, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Do remember that new videos come out every Sunday morning. If you're new here, be sure to check out all the other videos in the Wizard Golf Lessons playlist by clicking in the icon or the link in the description. And today we're going to begin our exploration on what everybody's been waiting for, the big dog, the driver. If you've been following along since the beginning, or you're just coming along and you've watched some of the other videos, we've been working our exploration of golf from the hole backwards. We've talked about putting and then chipping and then pitching and then greenside bunkers. And I thought we were going to keep going from the hole backwards. This is generally the way that I think about golf, but I think it's going to be good now to go back to the tee, because now you know how to score, you have those things to practice. So now we're going to get you off the tee box. So perhaps you're going to be a little bit more consistent and maybe even a little bit longer. The driver is a very special club in the bag. It is the only club really that we get to put on a tee from the tee box. I mean, of course we can tee up with other clubs on the tee from the tee box, but the driver is the one that we really put on a tee. We normally don't hit the driver off of the deck or off of the fairway or off the ground. Normally we tee it up. So because we get to tee it up, it makes for a very specific type of swing and setup so that we can maximize our potential to get maximum distance and maximum roll. We'll be talking today about the foundations, your setup, your posture, and your grip, so you can put yourself in the best position to smash it off the tee. The driver is typically the longest club in the bag, anywhere between 45 and 48 inches long, and it typically has the least amount of loft. So it will be one of the more difficult clubs to hit in the bag because of these two things combined. It's going to be the club head that's the furthest away from you because it's the longest, and it's going to have the least amount of loft. We talked before in the putting videos how the amount of face rotation will affect the direction, and the less amount of loft will increase how much the face rotation affects the direction of the golf ball. So because the driver has very little loft, face direction is going to have a huge impact on where the golf ball travels when we strike it. So as you're hitting the driver, keep in mind that this is going to be the longest, least accurate club. When we hit the driver, our object is to really maximize distance with a certain semblance of consistency. But when I hit the driver, I'm not really thinking about hitting it within a few feet, but rather probably within a few yards. I have a general target where I want to hit the driver. I'm really trying to get a good solid lick and maximize my distance so that I can minimize my approach or my next shot after that. In order to gain some consistency off of the driver, we stick to a process. Everything that I've shown you before is process oriented and not results oriented. If we go through a process, we develop a routine, it makes our consistency much higher. When we play golf, it's going to be impossible that we hit every shot perfect. None of the pros do. Nobody has ever hit every shot great. You miss shots. It's just a part of the game. But what you do want to do is try to maximize the probability that you do hit the shots well by implementing a process, a routine, so that you can get some level of consistency within each club that you're going to hit. Today, we're going to talk about that process and the foundations to do that. As with all clubs and all shots, we're going to start with the grip because that is the foundation, how we choose to hold the club. This is the driver I'm hitting at the moment. It's a Callaway Rogue ST Max LS at 9 degrees, but I have it set at -1, so I have it set at 8 degrees, and it has a Speeder 757 X-Flex shaft in it. We'll talk a little bit more about equipment later. I just want to give you the foundations today. But equipment is extremely important, especially the shaft that you choose to use in your driver. So your grip. If you don't understand anything about the grip, then I highly recommend you go back and look at lesson 1 where I talk about the grip and the lever, because we're going to be building upon that foundation. The left hand on the grip is going to be put on the same way that we put the left hand on all of our other clubs. Key points. We definitely want the pad to be on top of the club, like so that you can support the club like this. If you have it coming with your pad on the club, then you really don't have any support for the club and the weight of it. But if you have your pad over on top of it, then you can support the club like this, and you've got it. So we support the club with the pad being on top. This means a lot of times I have to move this part of my wrist around so that I can get my pad on top of it like this. That's the left hand. And we have to talk about the strength of the left hand. And by strength of the grip, I mean how much of the grip, how far around my hand is. If this win part here is aligned with straight, then this would be considered somewhat of a weak grip, and this would be a much stronger grip. Now, the grip that you choose to use is going to depend on a lot of factors. Past injuries. I have broken my wrists motocrossing back in the day, so my flexibility in my wrist is very limited. So the way that you grip it is going to depend on several factors: injuries, pain, and all manner of other things. But essentially what you want to get to is where, when you reach your impact position, that the face is relatively square. What do I mean by square? I like to test square by extending my left arm and my grip, and I test square when the face is straight up and down. So if my left arm is extended straight out, like so, then I can see that the face is relatively square there. So in my natural extended position, where my arm is going to be at impact, the face is square. If I extend my arm out and the face is closed like this is going to have a tendency to go left, and I will have to try to hold the face open to prevent it from closing too much at impact. Similarly, if I have the face too open, then the face will be open at impact. I really just want the face to be somewhat square, and I consider square when the face is straight up and down vertically, just by sticking it out horizontally and seeing where the face is at. So you can see there, when I stick my arm straight out, the face is somewhat, it's not open and it's not closed, it's pretty much straight up and down. That's how I know that my grip is pretty good for this club. Now, that being said, we are going to be playing the driver in the front of the stance. We'll talk about ball position here in just a minute. But because you're playing the driver in the front of your stance, you may have to use a slightly stronger grip than your other clubs because the club is so much more in front of you. So keep this in mind, that your grip with the driver might have to be slightly stronger than the other clubs. Now, the right hand. The right hand goes on in such a way that we can hinge the club. We've talked about this before. Again, if you haven't seen this, go back and watch lesson 1. And you can vary the strength of the right hand and how much you put the right hand on top. I can put the right hand where my pad of my right hand is way on top and well over it, so I can get, a really good maximum throw without opening the face up, so that way I can throw my hand completely over and the face is still square. Or sometimes I might have it a little bit like this, where I want to try to get a little bit of a draw swing so that when I throw it, when my hand releases or throws, the face will be slightly closed. You're going to have to experiment with this to decide what position your right hand needs to be, but understand that it is variable, and also the strength of the left hand. So we can have the right hand wrapped well around, or somewhat around, or kind of under. This all depends on the type of shot you want to hit, so nothing is completely fixed. Experiment with these different positions in the right hand till you find a position that sends the ball off the way you want it to and with the trajectory that you want. But typically, I like to have on my driver my pad well on top, because I want to have the full release of the club, and I want to be able to let it go all the way so that the club will still stay straight, and I can completely release my right hand like this, and the face will be straight. Also keep in mind, I know I'm speaking from the perspective of a right-handed golfer, so when I say right hand and your left hand, it's going to be opposite. Okay, so we have the grip on the club now, left hand and right hand. The other thing is tension. With the driver, because it's going to be your fastest swing speed, you're going to be swinging harder with it than all the other clubs, and because it's so long, you're going to have to squeeze it, hold on to it a little bit tighter than the other clubs, because we definitely don't want it to fall out of our hands as we swing. So with the driver, you can expect to grip it slightly stronger than you would in a chip or a pitch or even short approaches. So with the driver, you're going to be holding on to it a little bit more because you're going to be applying quite a bit more speed and effort and energy, and you want to prevent the club from falling out of your hand or twisting within your hand with all of the torque and energy that you're putting into the shaft. So now we'll talk about setup and getting the correct ball position. To set up properly on the golf ball, you want to develop a process. For me, that process began many years ago by first allowing yourself to set up straight with the ball. That is, getting the ball exactly through your center, putting your feet together, very close together under you, and so that the ball is straight down your center. Then you know that the ball is in your middle. You can also check this out in the ball position video. I think it's lesson 6 or maybe lesson 5 is ball position, so you can check out these concepts in more detail. Here we're talking specifically about the driver. But you want to start from this position, and then depending on what club you hit, you will step accordingly. Because the 7-iron is about in the middle of the stance, if I wanted to have the 7-iron, the ball in the middle of my stance, I would step equally on both sides so that the ball is somewhat in my middle. With the driver, we want to play the driver all the way forward, but we don't want it so far forward that we cannot reach it. So to get a good position with the driver, start from this position where the ball is in your center. Then flare the left foot 30 to 45 degrees. Flaring the left foot is very helpful to enable your rotation through the ball. If you have your foot straight and you try to turn your hips, you'll notice that you get stuck because of the tension in your leg here. It's hard to turn your foot open. It's hard to turn your hips open and move your body through the ball if your foot is square. I recommend highly having your foot in this direction because you're going in this direction. So an example, I'll have my foot square here and turn, and you can see that I'm kind of hindered here with the amount of rotation that I can move through the ball because I can feel that tension in the muscles in my leg. If I open my foot up like so, you can see that I can turn a lot farther. I can get my hips all the way towards the target because I'm not impeded by the limitations of the stretching in my leg. So I highly recommend opening that foot up. This will help you get through the ball. So again, we start from square, flare the left foot open, and then step the right, everything else back. When you set up like this, now the ball should be placed right on my front left heel. Now the ball position with the driver can be anywhere from the left heel all the way out to the toe, and maybe even slightly behind, maybe even as far back as the middle of the stance, depending on the type of shot. But from a standard perspective, just learn to set up like this. Center, square, step out, and then back. When you take this step backwards, you definitely don't want your stance to be too wide. Better narrow than wide. If the stance is, this for instance would be a little bit too wide of a stance for me. If my stance is too wide, I can no longer move my weight on top of my right side. I cannot shift my hips far enough to get over on top of my right leg, nor can I get on top of my left leg because I just can't move that far. So I want to have my stance such that I can still get on top. You see, at this moment, this is about as wide as I can be and still get my hips on top of my leg on both sides. And this is a lot of sway, but this is a club that I'm going to try to put a lot of power on, so I need a lot of movement. So my stance need not be wider than I can actually get my hips on top of my leg, my right hip on top of my right leg, and then my left hip on top of my left leg. So when I take my stance and I open this foot up, open foot up, step back. I've done this so many times, I kind of know where that position is for me. You're going to have to determine that. But just make sure that you're not standing wider than you can get your hips on top of each leg. So now you see that the ball is in the front of, all the way in the front of my stance. And if I hold the club like this with my left hand, there's a straight line from my shoulder to the ball or to the club head with the shaft. Essentially my arm and the shaft form a straight line. and my entire body is behind this line. Consider this a wall. My entire body is behind this wall. Everything is behind the golf ball. This is good setup. When you set up like this, you're going to set yourself up for success. Because we get to put the driver on the tee, if you want to get maximum distance off of the driver, you need to hit it on the upswing. You want to send the ball up into the air with minimum spin. Therefore, you need to hit it as the club head is coming upwards and not downwards. If you hit down on the golf ball, it's going to impart extra backspin. To minimize the spin, we need to hit up on the ball. And to hit up on the ball, we have to put it in the front of the stance and get our body behind the ball. So learn to set up like this and get in the correct setup position by flaring the left foot, stepping back with the right. And now you'll be in good position to hit the ball. This is where you want the driver. For some of you, it may feel like the ball is way far forward, but I can assure you that this is going to be a good position for you to get on the ball well. So now you know how to get your setup and ball position. But there's another aspect of ball position that we need to go over. Now you know how to set it up so that you can get the ball off of your left heel and in the front of your stance by setting up straight, flaring the left foot, and stepping back. But we also want to be able to put the ball position, to get our ball position the distance away from us, how far it is away from us. In order to do that, you have to determine where you're going to hit the driver. I can hit the driver from this position, in which case my setup would look like this, or I can hit the driver in this position, in which case my setup would look like this. If I want maximum distance, I need the biggest possible circle I can make to give me the longest amount of time to accelerate the club. And that is essentially going to be when my arms are at 90 degrees to my body. So this is pretty much going to be my maximum throw, my maximum distance that I can swing this club. This is going to be less of a swing. It's not going to be nearly as powerful because the club is not as long. It's not as big of a circle. This is going to be a much bigger circle. So when I need maximum distance, maximum throw, I get my arms high and try to get the club as far away from me as possible, and that's going to be in this position. As I drop my arms down, the club gets closer and closer to me. So this is going to be the farthest that it can be away from me. So from this position, I get in a nice extension, and I'm careful not to shrug my shoulders. You don't want to approach the ball like this. Oftentimes, we want to shrug our shoulders and we're getting ready, but this is not a strong motion. Be conscious of keeping your shoulders down, relaxed, away from your ears, down. So you can extend without shrugging the shoulders. We don't extend shrugging the shoulders. Stick your arms out, but keep your shoulders down. And wherever that is for you, that's going to be plenty. So even though this is my maximum throw, normally when I play my driver, I play it slightly less because I do want to have some semblance of control. So instead of here, I may play it just slightly lower. So if this is where I want to play the driver, to get my distance away, I maintain this position because I want to be here. Notice I have the club coming out at essentially 90 degrees from my body. This makes things easy to understand because as I sling this club, I will be slinging it 90 degrees to my axis of rotation, which is going to be my spine. If I have the club like this, then it doesn't make so much sense anymore how I'm going to move the shaft in order to hit it with the club. But if I have the shaft coming at 90 degrees to my body, then it's very clear how I need to move this shaft in order to hit the ball, because I can spin everything about my axis of rotation, which is my spine, and then hit it. So test this out for yourself. Have the club coming out. It's going to be coming out of your solar plexus, essentially, out of your center, out of your gut. And once you have this position, find how far away you are from the ball by bending over. Now when you bend over without just dropping your arms down. Maintain this angle here of your arms and your body where you want the club to be, and come down and stick your butt out. That's where the ball needs to be. So if I'm going to hit this ball, I have to get into that position here. See here, I would be too far away from the ball. I cannot just go like this and stretch out for it. This is my comfortable position. This is where I need to be to hit the ball. So I need to find this position, so I have to step everything forward, and that's where I need to be to put the club on the back of the ball, or the center of the club on the back of the ball. So this is how we find how far away we want to be from the ball. This varies. We just determine how much energy we want on it, how much flow or stretch we want, little or a lot, and then find that position for yourself. Once you have that, then you can start from center again, flare the left foot, step everything back, and get in position to rip it. Once you've determined your ball position, I want you to notice my posture here. My knees are not very bent. I'm trying to stand as tall as possible. I am not a very large man. I'm about 5'8", and I weigh 160 pounds. My swing speed is around 110 to 115 miles an hour, and I can carry the ball about 275 to 285, depending on the day. So understand that I'm producing quite a lot of power with a relatively small frame. I am quite strong and fit though, and I use that to my advantage, and in combination with the technique, I'm able to deliver the club at high speed. Because of that, I do not want to crouch down more. I want to try to stand tall, because this is where I get my energy from being tall. So I do not want to have excessive knee bend, nor do I want to have too much tilt forward. Just enough to get that club onto the ground, or at the ball. Just above the ground, preferably. Many people stand too much with their knees bent. I recommend straightening your knees up and feeling how that presses you down into the ground. You're going to feel it in your lower back. Notice how my spine is straight here. So when I rotate, I'm going to rotate my spine on this angle. If my spine is hooked like this, it's going to be a lot harder for me to turn this straight. With my spine relatively straight, this makes for an easy motion for me to go like this, because my spine is straight. This will reduce a lot of stress on your back. By moving properly, you will reduce stress on the muscles in your back and really limit your injuries. So really try to get in a good posture so that you get strong, and you're using the big muscles of your body and not overcompensating by using lesser muscles by being in poor posture. Just like you have good posture walking, you want a nice, good, strong posture, and that is the athletic position. Slight knee bend, butt back, spine straight. Look at yourself in the mirror and get an idea of what that feels like. So this is what my posture would look like to hit this drive. Now we've got an idea of the basics. Now I'll show you the posture from the face-on view, because there is something important here to add to the pie. So I'm setting up square to the target, ball in the middle of my body, flare the left foot, step right foot back. Now notice that I don't have my hands on the club yet. It's important to understand that I want the shaft here because I want to hit the ball in this position, up against this wall. So in order to do that, and in order to maximize the fact that we're going to hit it up, we tilt our spine backwards some, like this. By tilting the spine backwards, this enables us to hit upwards on the ball and not downwards. If my spine is straight or forwards, this encourages a downward swing. But with the spine backwards, tucked behind the ball, this enables us to keep it low in the backswing and hit up on it through impact. I think you can see that there. When I tilt behind the ball, I can get under it and hit so that it reaches its low point behind the ball, and then we'll start coming up through the ball. So spinal tilt is important. I like to just keep my left hand on the club and then get down behind it, and then putting your right hand on the club. The error that's often made is when you go to put your right hand on the club is to just reach over and grab it. But notice that the club is way forward. It's, you know, about where my left pocket is, or my front pocket. So if I just reach over and grab the club like this, my shoulders have opened up completely. So I have my body being square with my shoulders open. I'll show you this from the back. If I'm in position here and I just go to reach and grab the club, my shoulders get square because I have to, the grip is so far in front that when I reach over, I have to grip it like this. This will never do. This will promote a cut swing or a big slice. To eliminate this, get in your position, and when you go to grab the club with the right, let your right hand go and grab it from under. This will promote the tilt. As opposed to just grabbing it like this and getting over it, we tilt back and grab it from under. This keeps the shoulders square to the target line, so we're not across the target line just by reaching over. This is extremely important in hitting the driver, is reaching under, getting the spinal tilt, and then getting your grip on the club. And because you're having to grip from under, you may have to grip it a little bit stronger than you're normally used to. I like to grip from under and then wrap over like this, so I'm in position like so I can completely throw the club at the ball and finish up. So this would be pretty close to my driver position. Here, notice how strong that looks as opposed to this, where I'm just grabbing and reaching over. I'm completely behind the golf ball here in this position. Straight line with the shaft in my arm and my shoulder, and all my body is completely behind the golf ball. Most of my weight is on my right side, or slightly said just rear of center, but I have a lot of weight on the back. I'm preparing to move backwards from the ball. So this is a good position here to start from for hitting the driver. These are going to be your foundations for a good setup and a good posture to maximize your potential of ripping that driver off the tee. We'll go over the technique in the next video, so I'm going to show you the process one more time from this angle so you can see the result. How I would go about this: I get my distance away from the ball, feet back, step in, relax the shoulders down, reach from under, get behind the ball, and then rip it. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching. We're going to keep going with the driver series. Next time we're going to talk a little bit about technique, developing power, and a few other subtleties that'll go a long way in your driver hitting ability. And be sure to always check out 2 of my videos here and subscribe here if you haven't already done so. Thanks a lot. See you next week.